Welcome, everybody, and thank you for tuning in and joining us on what's essentially the first of the Aftermath podcasts, which in itself is an offshoot of stuff I've done before. And today I'm joined by two very, very dear friends of mine and two guys who are renowned experts in their field and whose advice and guidance I've often consulted with, and we've taught many, many things over, which is Mr. D. Burton and Mr. Rich Moore. How are we doing, chaps?
We're doing
Great.
good. Great.
Absolutely.
As we said, I think the last time we did one of these online meetings, we've got to stop meeting like this, boys. It's not good.
Yeah.
One day we will actually have a meeting, which is a happy one, where we're meeting because, a particular sports team won, or, there was a wrestling match where Ricky the Dragon Steamboat came out of retirement and won it and got the World Wrestling Federation title, something like that. Not trying to be glib, not trying to make light of the situation. We all know what kind of triggered the idea behind the podcast, which was the Tyre Nichols situation from down in the US. Now, I am not going to play or put that footage on today. I think there's more than enough avenues for people to watch that. There's more than enough ways people can see that with their own, every outlet has the same slant and things on it. But it's once again shone a light on the protective services industry, on law enforcement, and the associated aspects that go along with that, whether that's the specific role, the training, and everything else that goes on with it. Let me throw it to you guys, because I can just keep doing soliloquies all day on this. So, D, I'll jump to you first, brother. What went through your mind when you saw this go down, bros? I'm assuming it was very, very similar to my thoughts.
Man, without being too expletive, I guess it's like W2F, WTF, man. Like what the F? Like it just complete egregious just buffoonery. I I mean I had questions just regarding what were the initial reasons for the stop. I mean I've come across a couple of things, but it all seems pretty trumped up. There's a lot of things that have come to light in the past few days, saying that this may be some retribution thing for this guy dating an ex-girlfriend of one of the cops. There's been like information with that coming out. Just my initial thing is just, come on, man, we got to do better. We got to do better as law enforcement, first responders, because as of now, from what I've heard, two EMTs were fired, but I think more from fire EMS were canceled as well. But I'm pretty sure, I know for sure two, but that I heard that
Yeah, there
more
was
people were canceled. Yeah.
there was a driver, there was an EMT, and there was a paramedic. And at this point, until the investigation is complete, there's that whole rumor mill of, well, this happened and that happened, and you hear that, well, the officers threaten the EMTs, touch him and you're going to get touched, so on. And it's one of those things that I get it. You just watch five huge police officers beat one man down. You're not going to want to go stick your hands on it if they tell you not to. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But in that same sense, you have a duty to act and get that man help.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting angle to come at it from, Rich, because it's a unique one. Your experiences as a paramedic are all going to be very different, myself and Dee's, with our front line from our training side of things. So it's rare in cases, in my experience in the UK and Canada, that you do something and then you're fired within days of that happening, or a couple of weeks of that happening. It's normally a much longer process. So I'm assuming in this instance they've either got something absolutely, we know damn well you did this, or they're riding a boat of public opinion, which is a dangerous vessel to be hitching yourself to anyway. From your perspective, from the EMT perspective, because this is one that often doesn't get mentioned, how did you react when you saw what went down and all the things you heard about it? What was your take from this?
Well, I mean, my little reaction when I first saw it was, I'm like, holy crap, what did this guy do? I'm like, and because me, I'm always back to police, until they're proven that they did something wrong. And then I'm like looking at it and I'm like, if he shot at somebody, yeah, I get that. I understand that. Or if he shot one of the fellow officers or something like that, I get that. I understand that them going a little hog wild. I get that. But for a traffic stop and, resisting arrest, that was way too much. Like and then you start hearing more and more things come out and you're like, and then your initial, what's the word I'm looking for? But your initial reaction to it is like, well, I should have been more angry than that, because that, from what I was told, that this guy did nothing.
And I think that's still, as D, you alluded to, the stuff coming out. I mean, the one that really the believed to be involved in an ex-girlfriend or current girlfriend with another officer, that is a rumor that we can't actually providence. It just kind of got thrown into the mix. So the point where I think it was mentioned in the eulogy by his father, this isn't true. This isn't the case.
And even if that was, it's not. There's no. Let's say that was. There's still no call for that abuse.
Hell no. And I think that's something I'll get out the way early doors for anyone that's watching us. When we refer to things throughout the podcast and as we talk about things, in no way is anything that we say an attempt to excuse the behavior of people.
Yeah, we're not condoning that behavior.
No. What we're trying to do is get to the sort of causality of the causes of things. When you start to look at causes of crime, you deal with the criminal itself and the act they're doing, and then naturally you will then start to back engineer that to see, is there anything we can do at an environmental level, at a design level, at a societal level, intervention levels, mental health, etc., etc., etc. Can we minimize crime rather than just concentrate on the detection of it? The same logic is applying here when we're talking about what can we do to prevent these kind of incidents happening again. We're not trying to explain or excuse the behavior of the individuals. We're trying to understand what led to this perfect storm of buffoonery, as D called it, which is a term I know, and that's not making light of it, because it's idiocy on a massive scale. What can we do to understand how we got here? Because this is going to help us recognize what goes down in the future. Anger and outrage is understandable and it's natural. Anyone that isn't angered and outraged by this, I question your position in the universe and your moral center. But that isn't going to get us to the crux of the matter. Burning the house down with the pitchforks isn't going to help us stop this happening again. And that's where I want to try and come out with the angle of this. And so the reason I want to get that out early doors is, as soon as you mention anything, which is attempting to say, this is how they ended up in this position, it's saying people, oh, you're just trying to excuse them and this, that, and the other. No, I'm really not. And it's important to get that out. We've talked about this offline as well, which was one of the genesis of us having this chat. And we've both been saying this for many, many years. And Rich, I know you are in agreement with this, coming from your training background and the things you've done too. Why is it that continually, we see these incidents occurring? And why are the departments not doing the one thing they can do to minimize it, the easiest thing they can do to minimize it, which is train those guys better?
Yeah. I would take it even more too, Jay. It's definitely a training issue. Absolutely a training issue. And people will be in uproar about that as well too. No, everybody always says it's just a training issue. It's a training issue. You can't train X, Y, and Z. Well, training is a big part of it. But there's other parts to it as well. The training aspect of it would come into, like you and I have spoken before. These guys ran out of real estate in terms of their brain on what to do. So they came to a halt in terms of how they could be effective in bringing this person under control and placing him in handcuffs. If that was even the the ultimate goal anyway. Let me put that out there. We don't even know if that
That
was
does
the
not look
ultimate
like
goal.
it does not look
Yeah,
like it.
right. So we're going off if these were quote unquote sane officers and they were really doing the correct thing of arresting somebody for an offense that was arrestable and they couldn't control them. We're just going off that premise because maybe they probably weren't even working on that premise, but let's just say they were. Training plays a big aspect in that because the guy was he wasn't passively struggling. He was actively resisting, but he wasn't fighting them, right? And they just
No,
couldn't control him.
and when you have, but it's like when you have 5 police officers like that, you take that one guy to the ground, you handcuff him, you shackle him, whatever you got to do, and be done with it. And I get the anger part, of having to deal with somebody resisting, but watching the one officer hold him while the other one swings on him like it's a bar fight is just, I have no words for that.
Yeah. And so the other part of that in terms of given if their mission was to bring this person into custody, they ran out of training real estate because they didn't have no ideas of what to do. Is the mental health part of this, right? There's a sociological aspect to this where people are in this wolf pack mentality as well. And I've been one to say, and I've been saying this for years, it's finally, I've seen some people that are way more in the limelight than I start to see this and to take traction. But I think that law enforcement should be having mental health screenings every 2 years. Every other year should be just like you take your car in for a tune-up, for an oil change after so many miles. The brain is no damn different, right? After so many miles of running through, in the shit, excuse my language, but you need to go in for a checkup and a tune-up just to make sure that all cylinders are working good, everything is lubed right, all the neurons are firing correctly, you haven't become too cynical, right? You haven't become too overly aggressive and anxious, anxiety ridden. But we need to be having that. If you don't do that, over time, with this rat pack mentality or this wolf mentality, you being a part of this quote unquote elite special, well, I guess we'll talk about that too in a bit, but this elite special team, that can create a very volatile mixture. And this is what you get.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, we'll bring it up now. The idea of if you take guys that are already probably mentally tilted towards doing that, you undertrain them, and then you give them their special decoder ring badge to go along and do what it is they're going to do.
Yep.
You're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have a lot of problems because you're making them stand alone, stand apart. And when you make them stand alone and stand apart, they start to see themselves as special, It's, let me get this right, street crimes operation to restore peace in our neighborhoods, I think is, which is the most tortuous, ridiculous. You really we're trying. Well, we want to call ourselves Scorpion, right? How can we back engineer that to make it sound like it's peaceful?
Yeah, at what point? At what point do you stop? At what point is committing crimes trying to stop the crime? You know what I'm saying? Because that's
that's the old, be careful, he who hunts monsters do not become a monster themselves. The thing, or the idea of staring into, exactly. Or you stare into the abyss steps back, and that Batman syndrome and Punisher syndrome. That's an interesting thing to come back to as well. And we may actually touch back on that later on because that's definitely having an impact. That kind of, the soul bastion in a world that's gone wild and things like that. What I find interesting, Dee, when you mention the mental health thing, and this is something, so we are going to come on to training, but the mental health interventions, that's something which the departments almost have sole responsibility for, because even if the guys in your unit and your colleagues are saying, yo, dude, you okay? That's still that peer thing. Yeah, I'm fine, man. I'm fine. You're not going to like say, actually, I'm kind of messed up. There is software available almost universally that you can look at an officer's load, because certain events are trigger events, or they're consistent trigger events. So if you did something like, if you go to a murder scene, high number of points, probably want to get a debrief after that because they're kind of bad. If you deal with a traffic stop, low points. But you get a number of one murder scene is equal to, say, 30 traffic stops. You then end up having you hitting your points target. It's like, okay, we need to have a look at this guy now. So I like the idea of doing this frequently, with every year or every 2 years and things like that. That should be a set one, but there should also be blue interventions at points where you've had a certain number of things that are adding up to, there's been 4 or 5 things that are traumatic trigger points here. We know this because we're monitoring this officer's workload, we're monitoring their calls, we're monitoring what went on, the amount of use of force they're doing, the nature of the incident against them, was it a passive compliant, etc. There's a million and one metrics you can apply to that, which any records management system or RMS or even data mining system, the one I'm most familiar with is Palantir, but there are others out there. Any one of these can go touch of a button and tell you what that officer's done. And I think a lot of this comes back to something that you and I, and Rich, I know you'll agree with this as well. It's the leadership that has to take, believe it or not, the lead on this, because that's where the changes have to come from. They have to put the time, the investment, and they have to push through the resistance that you're going to get to do this. This is not going to be a comfortable transition.
We've had that same, we've kind of had that same talk with the EMS, and it's the mental health aspect of it is kind of like they want you to talk about it, but on the hindsight, they kind of don't, because then they're like, well, are people going to trust us to run these calls? Are people going to trust us to do these things? And also, let's say you hire somebody and for 3 years straight, they're running cardiac arrest, pediatric gunshot wounds, which we'll talk about later because I had one the other day, and I was so angry at this. 12-year-old shot GSW to the right arm, come out at 5 o'clock in the morning with his dad, who is a known blood affiliation, and basically the kid got caught in the crossfire. But you're looking at it from an officer's point of view or an EMS employee's point of view. The mental health needs to be up, but if you're the number cruncher, you're like, the cost for this is going to be astronomical. Plus, you're looking at lifelong cost, and that's why I think a lot of people aren't pushing it, for the simple fact that they don't want to spend the money for it. They can always train somebody else, put somebody else in that position, and then just let you go out and do whatever you need to do until you break and they've got somebody else coming behind you.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, go D. So no, go brother, go.
I was gonna say absolutely. He brings about a great point and perspective, and it will cost a lot of money on the front end. 100% agree. But what they don't get, what the number crunchers don't get, is that on the back end, it will save a lot of lives.
Yes.
Right. It will save more lives. Right. And so that's what the number crunch. And I guess I can't really blame number crunchers because they're number crunchers. They're not looking at it that way. But the leadership goes back to what Jay was just saying. The leadership, that's a part of being a leader. Your number crunchers may not see it, leader, but guess what, leader? You see it, and you tell the number crunchers what the hell to do.
Yep.
Like, yo, we need this to happen. You don't have to see it. That's what I'm a leader for. I see it. I see the vision, and I see what we need. And I need you to know that on the back end, this is saving us lives, and it's saving us more money in the end. So.
And I think that's often one of the biggest mistakes that was made, and I understand the genesis of the decision, was to treat the emergency services as a business endeavor. Now, I think originally it was because money was, like Eric Bischoff in the latter days of WCW, he was just like spending money left, right, and center, just throw it at whatever you need to do. I understand there needs to be an accountability piece with that. But by the same token, you should not be making life decisions on purely financial drives before that. You're right. A lot of money.
That is our society.
It is. And unfortunately, policing works on quarters and annual budgets. This is our budget for this year. EMS, I'll guarantee you, works the same. The military certainly works the same. When you get in towards November and you got money left in the pot, you got to spend that stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to have it for next year. Or, you know, the other one is when crime has gone down, they reduce the numbers because crime has gone down. So you don't need the numbers anymore. Well, guess what happens? The crime goes back up. Oh, now we need more numbers. And crime goes back down. Oh, no, we don't. And it's that ridiculous idea of the bottom line being the dollar. Now, the dollar has to have an influence on what we're doing because everything, unfortunately, in society is dictated by cost. But if that's your sole driving factor, D, you nailed it. The number crunchers crunch the numbers. The leader said, yeah, that is expensive. Do it anyway. That has to be that point. Because what's happening now, I'm certainly seeing it in the local services and some of the ones across the country, is they're spending thousands upon thousands upon thousands of 3-hour community involvement courses. Okay, so we're having bad relations with the community. Let's have this 3-hour course, train everybody in it, and then we can say we're doing something about it. Well, that money is wasted because the guys aren't going to learn dick in 3 hours. There's no fundamental changes in what they're doing. It's literally a band-aid on an axe wound. Take those stupid courses that you're doing and actually make that part of your ethos in your society, in your culture, your police culture as a whole, your EMS culture, your fire culture, and let's actually put the money back into proper training. Let's allow the trainers to train as well.
Yeah.
Man, it's irritating.
Yeah.
And City Hall, unfortunately, has to eat a lot of that too, because they're the ones that dole the dollars.
And you got to look at it. You look at police. Police are a government subsidiary.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a private EMS company, so you're looking at a whole different ball game. And somebody said, you know, well, what if police were privatized? I was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And because I told somebody, I said, if you want even a glimpse, and even though it's a movie, look at RoboCop.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole RoboCop was exactly that point. You privatize the industry. This is what you get.
Yeah.
Well, look what happened with the prison system when they privatized that. That became prison for profit.
It becomes profit, and you know, whenever it's for profit, you leave room for the bad guys to sneak in, whether it's, you know, trafficking drugs in and out of prison, phones, things like that. When you make it all about the dollar, you're going to have some type of, you know, crime happening.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the other concerns and issues we've got as well. So now you got a department which is underfunded, and you're putting, I mean, let's go back to these 6 guys that were involved in this. They're big lads. You got 6 absolute horses that you put out there, and you said, you know what, here's you're going to control the streets and do what you're going to do, but we're not going to train you to do it. So you're giving them a direction with no parameters. Control the streets, do what you need to do. Yeah, great. You can wear a blue and a red headband, pick which neighborhood you're in, you know, that's basically where you're at. You basically put a gang on the street. I don't care.
Yes.
No matter how you want to try and put it up about, you know, it's a more proactive approach from no, you put a gang on the street. The thing that always makes me laugh when you see things like this, we need a more aggressive approach. No, you need to do your job done properly. If you're doing the job properly, you don't need a more aggressive approach.
But that I agree with to 95% degree with that. You have to look at where they're at. Also, you're talking Memphis. You're talking deep in the South, rural South area where they're at. It's a different ball game. Like, you know, take LA for example. Like, I mean, that is, I can't even begin to imagine the crap that the cops face out there. But Memphis is a bad area.
Yes, it is. However, can't.
No, but I'm not saying.
No, I know.
I'm not saying let the dogs off the chain, but you have to have an aggressive dog to nip that, you know, or put that area under control.
But you can't have a wild dog. And that comes back to the beginning. You can have dogs that are more capable and more trained, They don't necessarily need to be more aggressive. They need to be more capable and need to know, but they need to know their shit. We're not changing the law. We can't rewrite the law. We can't rewrite the rules because the area, you know what? The area's shitty. Fucking hood up, go in there and crack skulls. You're still operating within the same legal parameters that you're operating anywhere else. Learn your job better. You should not be getting the big guys on this. You should be getting the smart guys on this, because they're the guys that are going to solve it. They're the guys that are going to have the tools in the box to deal with this. You beat one skull, guess what? That's not doing a damn thing except to that one person, and all you've now done is pissed off the neighborhood. You've just another gang on the street now. You're not solving the problem, is my kind of take on this situation. And especially when you come in with undertrained guys. And that's what we had here. We had 6 jacked up morons that are woefully undertrained as well. And this is the big sticking point for this. If you take one of my mid-level jiu-jitsu guys that's been with me about 2 years, okay, yeah, they could have held him down without even. If I scratch that, you've been with me about 6 months, you can probably hold that guy down.
Well, I mean, I've got the video playing in the background right now, and so after watching it, looking at it, it took them 12 minutes to cuff him. Now had they and again, I'm not a police officer. I've never done that. But
you roll with us. You know the score.
When you look at the initial takedown, and why wasn't he placed in cuffs at that point? You would have stopped him from running. You would have controlled some of the resisting arrest right there at that point. It's just
the worst thing with that as well is if you actually watch. Have you ever seen like 3 dogs go at the same time?
Oh yeah.
They're pulling in different directions. One guy's trying to get him on his stomach while the other guy's trying to roll him over with an arm lock, and the other guy's got his head and the other guy's sticking a taser in his leg. It's how can you, and this is one of the most frustrating points about it. If you listen to the vocals as he's coming out of the car at the beginning, he's like, okay, chill, whoa, guys, calm. Okay, I'm doing it. They're not letting him comply. They have their strategy to go in, which is straight away guns out, and this is something we're going to come on to, but why are you going in there with guns out? Unless that call necessitates an armed takedown, you ain't armed takedowning them. And if it necessitates an armed takedown, that's one of the shittiest armed takedowns I've seen in my entire life, and they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves beyond everything else that they did. There's a protocol and there's a way you do that stuff properly, and you don't go in there just like screaming your head off. Yeah. They get him out, and they're already at 20,000 feet. So if you've got an individual that's been pulled over by the police in an area which maybe not be the most salubrious, probably culturally there's some trappings and tangings in there, you're already not really happy that the police are taking you down. And then you see which police it is, and it's the trained lunatics in their nice proper ball caps and hoodies and just police t-shirts and their police branded underpants and all the other stuff that they got to go with it to make themselves feel special. They're in at 20,000 feet. Come on, motherfucker, fucking go, fuck. This guy's going to start shitting his pants. And when you force someone into that kind of adrenal dump, you got fight or flight. Well, freeze arguably at the beginning coming in. You got fight or flight coming in. He's trying to comply at the beginning. These dickheads aren't letting him do it. He's trying to comply and they fail. And when you've now got that situation going on, that's when he's going to run. Because it's like, I'm going to die here. I'm trying to comply. They're still hitting me. Whatever I'm doing I'm off and I'm on my toes. I ranted a bit there. I actually forgot my larger point and my larger question, but you see, they came in so high. Yeah. There was no engagement protocol here. There was no engagement at all. Underskilled, no engagement. These guys are not cops. And if that's the elite of the department, the whole department needs scrapping.
Nobody took leadership on the scene also.
Yeah. Which comes back to your point. That's your alpha point.
So funny thing is that the police chief there used to be the police chief for Atlanta PD down here with me. So
what's interesting with that? I mean, D, that comes back to your alpha point. Everybody wants to be the big dog.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a study, and I read this study some time ago. There was a study released It was done in Africa. It was on one of the reserve parks, and there was, let's say, around about 50 young male elephants on this wildlife preserve. They had all these young male elephants on wildlife preserve, and then an interesting thing started happening. These male elephants, they started tearing the whole place up. I'm talking about they were killing rhinos, which is unheard of at a large level. They were stomping out like gazelle. They were attacking everything, attacking hippos, attacking all this stuff. And they were going through estrogen. They were going through estrus, I think is what they call it. But they just so much testosterone buildup in the system. And they were all around the same age. And an interesting thing, they brought in like this head dude that was a zoologist and everything. And they brought him in to observe and see what was going on. And so what he noticed is that there's no leadership. There's no sergeant on the scene, a groomed sergeant, nobody that's been around to help quell the situation. So what they did is they brought in like 3 or 4 older male elephants with the big long tusks. Mm-hmm. And what they saw immediately when those male elephants were brought into play, the older ones, immediately these young dudes' testosterone levels went down. And it was kind of like one of those things like, look, youngster, chill the hell out before you really piss somebody off that knows what they're doing. But it yanked the chain on these young dudes, and the killings of rhinos and hippos and all these just other animals stopped happening. Everything went down. And so my point in bringing that up is going with what you guys are saying is these guys responded to the scene. Now, normally when you have a hot situation like that, you're on the radio, a sergeant is coming right away. Yep. They're on their way. Like it's code 3, the sergeant is coming right away. And that's important to know because we got to know in the profession, sergeant, like you have to know that this is going to be a heightened situation. I got a bunch of young, eager dudes out there that really want to do something, but I need a level head there to bring this testosterone level down, to bring this angst down so that we don't get sued, so we don't do dumb stuff like we just seen. And it makes the situation a lot better. So I say all that to say that, yes, the leadership is primary. It is key. I tell you, man, a good sergeant or a good corporal, a good senior officer on scene, man, they are worth their weight in gold if they know, you know what I'm saying, that they know what they're doing. And they keep an even head when everything around you is going array. They got it. They got the eye of that tiger, and they're just watching the scene, peeping the scene. They're giving good, clean, concise directives. They're telling everybody to shut the hell up and stop all this yelling. And they're putting leadership in motion. And that's one of the big things that you didn't see at all. And it's one of those things that when we have these talks, that's one of the main things that we're missing. And every time that we have these discussions, that's one of the main things that we're always missing is, hey, where's the leader? Nope, bunch of young dummies, you're right. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what I'm saying, doing dumb stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is where we're at.
With the absence of a street boss, and that could actually be as much to do with the unit's remit as anything else. If you, again, comes back to that thing we did, you put them outside the realm of the street boss, they're their own thing. It's like when a tactical team shows up or a SWAT team shows up and things, they dance to their own drum, you know. The running joke we used to say was, if you're the designation of elite police unit typically means shit at paperwork. Because that's like seems to be the thing, you know. They come in, make a loud noise, and then bugger off and leave everyone else to actually do the paperwork and the cleanup job. But they look good with their hair gel and flexing doing it. I got lots of friends in tech, it's fine. But we have a situation again where, with the lack of leadership at a street level, which either hasn't been provided or the protocols aren't in place to allow that to kick in automatically. Because did they even call this in beyond there was a T-stop? That was the other thing. Where's the process? Where's the monitoring? Where's there should be a whole chain of things. We're talking about these trigger points when you've dealt with calls. There should be trigger points in the calls. My location, direction, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it to. Everyone should know that before all the rest of it sort of unfolding and stuff.
Yeah.
This again comes back to the individuals. Sometimes we have to save someone from themselves. You know, when you got that friend that you're out with that is drunk and is going to do something really stupid, and you're like, you know, maybe we should, you know, let's just get you a coffee. Yeah, that's you, is it, Rich? Rich is that friend. But he's like, maybe we should get a coffee inside you, or go and take a walk and get some fresh air before you go and test how strong your knuckles are against that bouncer's face. We automatically intervene in those situations because we know, you know, this ain't going to be good. In social settings, we're far quicker to intervene to stop our friends doing really, really stupid things. In professional settings, there almost seems to be a bog-like group thing, and there's a disinclination to not back your guy's play, for want of a better word. He's doing that, well, for better or worse, we're on for the ride. And that's, again, what happened here. At some point, one of them must have known this is stupid. This is really bad. This is not going to end well for anyone here.
Yeah.
But no one did.
Well, and that's it. And again, like I've got the video playing in the background, and I'm looking at it, and no one is checking on this guy. I mean, he's just leaning up against the car. And let's see, I am. Okay, so we're probably 10 minutes from the point they cuffed him, and he's leaning up against the car to now, and then still no EMS bus on scene. None of the police officers are checking on him.
And you watch when he slumps.
Yeah.
How long he stays there.
Yeah. It's that right there. It's I don't know. It gets my blood boiling, but again, I'm not condoning what they did, but again, we go back to if somebody on scene, if you had somebody with seniority and an testosterone infused mind looking at the situation like, hey, let's make sure he's breathing, he's still alert, he's still conscious. You know what I'm saying?
You should know. I mean, if you've given someone that much of a tatering and they absolutely banjoed him, you know we should probably get him checked out. There's not. I mean, D, you train this protocol far more recently than I do. I've been out the game a couple of years now. You must teach that in class. Check self, check environment, check subject.
Yeah, you have to render aid. Which, look, and I don't know. I mean, I've been exposed to a lot of law enforcement agencies across the nation, and I don't know all of their protocols. But I would be very hard pressed to believe that within that agency, their protocol isn't to render aid once you've busted somebody up like that. Like it, I would be hard pressed to believe that that's not what they're teaching as well, which makes me believe, which leads us three to believe that there was something more there. Like, come on, dude, you know, if you break them, you got to fix them. You have to render aid. Like, you have to do that. So.
And
why wouldn't you?
Really, look. I mean, look at all the beatings we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah,
you would think that they would say like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this." You know, maybe we shouldn't. You know, but I guess looking at it, I mean, the other police officers have been dealt with in these other beatings, but I believe these guys are going to most likely be made an example of, hey, this cannot go on anymore. Like, I mean, this you've got, let's say, what was the George
Floyd?
Yeah, George Floyd beating. Yeah, you had some images and videos of that. But this one, I mean, you got clear-cut evidence of the violence that took place against this man. And again, I'm not condoning it. I understand he ran, and I understand, he ran, so you're gonna work him a little bit. But there's a difference between, hey, working him a little bit and then killing him, like what they did.
And we talked about this, D. We've had this chat ourselves.
Yeah.
Again, I'm prefacing this. I'm not excusing anything. I'm not saying that's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the way it should be.
Yeah.
But when people run from a predator, the prey instinct kicks in. You know, like Chris Rock did a whole sketch on it.
He did.
Do you know what I mean? It's like if the everyone knows if the police have to chase you, they're bringing an ass whooping with them. Okay, you made me run. I got sweaty and I don't look cool anymore. Leaving aside the slightly flippant nature of that comment, there has to be an education piece at the moment, which is a holding point, and this is for the members of the public. Now, this is not to say obey. This is not to say this is the way it is. This is not to say this is the way it should be.
No, not at all.
The reason I'm saying this is because my words, if they're taken in a 30-second soundbite right now, are going to be taken out of context and they're going to get chewed apart. There has to be an education piece to the public to tell them when you fight and when you resist. And that is after the arrest in the courtroom. Because you are not winning on the cobbles. Not now.
You're just not. Yeah.
No.
And
I'm looking
sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say
I'm going between this and the I'm looking, I'm looking at the video again, and I'm counting there's at least 8 or 9 people out there now. And I'm like, it just blows my mind that no one sat there to think and try to take care of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I can understand if you were all rookies, but you got veteran police officers out there.
They're the elite unit, the Scorpions.
Yeah, like it blows my mind.
The hubris that goes along with that is definitely not helping any of this situation here. Yeah. When police are doing something egregious, it's wrong. But it's one of those things where you have to kind of roll with it. Because they'll stack and they'll stack and they'll stack, and another unit will come, and another unit will come, and another unit will come. Take them out afterwards, make them accountable afterwards. Again, I understand why, in this instance, the flight instinct was triggered. His attempts to comply were basically refused. We're not letting you. So you kicked him primal. This idea of, have you tried obeying the law? Again, I'm not saying that gives carte blanche if you're breaking the law for other stuff to go wrong, but there's an element of educate your engagement protocol with the police. If I'm going to go on safari, if I'm going into the jungle, if I'm going into the desert, if I'm going to be day to day in an environment when there's a high risk to get bitten, eaten, stung, or anything else, I will have protocols in place for engaging those species and what I will do post engagement with those species. If we look at if we take the point of view that the police are wrong, all cops are bastards, whatever the frequency is that people are tuning into at the moment, you have to have a coping strategy in place for that engagement protocol. And if it's fight, you've instantly lost. I'm not going to go toe to toe with a pack of wolves.
No.
Yeah, that's where because I've had this discussion offline as well with you and just with other people as well. And I completely 100% agree with everything you just said. And what I'll add to that is, and put more emphasis on, is that do the fight in court. Do the fight in court. Law enforcement is trained not to lose. That's and for good reason. For good reason, they're trained that way.
It's an
However,
asymmetrical engagement for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but when it goes awry, like when the wolves don't have leadership, or when the wild young male elephants don't have somebody to snap them back, that's when the trouble happens, right? That's when things go off kilter. So winning is absolutely the main goal. It has to be done right, and it has to be done within reason. Uh, so I plead, with the public, and people will fight back with that too. But I mean, we'll fight back this logic. But yeah, man, like believe me, have the day in court. It's better than being buried,
It's equal
right?
ground.
Yes, it's better than the chances, right, of you being buried, or the possibility of you being buried. I 1000% agree with the fight or flight. I 1000% agree with these dudes was not giving him a chance to do, because one was pulling this way, one was pulling that way, and his fight or flight was like, I get it, but public, hear the plea. Go with the program. Go with the program. Just about every damn near every um, department now in the U.S. Almost, not all, just about all of them have body worn cameras now, right?
Yes.
Just about they are getting they get reviewed, and things, and every time something like this happened, the dial is turned up now on departments. Like people are like, no, you guys better be reviewing these on a periodic basis every month. Like we want to know what's going on. So believe me, public. Unfortunately, this happened, but the accountability is with officers. The accountability on agencies and departments is getting a lot better because you guys are turning the heat up. So I say keep turning the heat up in the right way, and the changes are happening. It just sucks that when something like this happens, because we are first responders, man, we have a responsibility, man, right? We should be held to a higher standard. So I don't mind the criticism. I give it to us all because we should be, right, held to a higher standard. Look, man, when I take my kid or something to Catholic mass, if I was Catholic, I'm not expecting for the priest to be touching up on my kid, right? Because we hold them to a higher standard. Same thing with a doctor. Look, dude, I expect you not to be some halfsy-wabsy doctor. I want the best doctor. Same thing with pilots. Who wants to go? We talked about this before, and there was a joke about this. A comedian said, who wants to fly with the pilot who's at the bottom of the class? Well, shit, I don't. Right? Like fuck that. Right? So officers and EM first responders, we should all be held to a higher standard. So when we screw up, flame us. Got it. Roger that. Because that raises the standard. So
yeah, with me, it's we have rules in place, and one of them is let's say we have a code down here called 1013, which is a psych hold over here. So if you have a female psych 1013, we're going to send a female unit or a unit with a female to that call, because
if an entire neighborhood's worth of
sorry, hold on.
told you your mole was cancerous, would you keep it? Cancerous. If an entire
There we go. So because a lot of times, sexual assault, things like that, you don't put yourself in that legal pickle per se of, okay, you've got a female with mental issues here. You've got a male in the back with all she's got to do is say, hey, he touched me when he may not have. And you're opening up that can of worms right there.
Yep.
Absolutely. And when you have the situation like this, again, you should have had a captain or somebody on scene, like within minutes. Somebody say, hey, you need to stop.
Yeah.
Or even on the airwaves. Sit rep guys, what we got?
Yeah.
Anything to bring them out of that moment. Status. Yeah, put that call in. There's something you brought up earlier, and this is something I work with my instructor cadre, the guys that I train. Not my day-to-day students. I always try and instill the same sort of sense in them anyway, but the specific training I do to my guys. And a few years ago, I made a shift. The idea, and it was something you said, of they win. They have to win the fight, win the victory. That idea comes very much from the warrior mentality, is what it's referred to in the training protocols. I stepped away from that certainly towards the end of my law enforcement career and in my own personal evolution as a self-protection instructor. And I switched to what I call the guardian mindset. A warrior's job is to fight. People will try and come up with, no, a warrior is one that deals with struggles, and no, it's in the fucking name, warrior. You're a fucking warrior. You fight in wars. That's what you do. Now, you can then start to change the definition of wars, and to the point where it becomes moot, where some people consider themselves a warrior because they ate all their breakfast and bounced their checkbook that morning. But for me, the switch to becoming a guardian was far more important, because a guardian protects. A guardian looks after. They are in a position where that protection may end up being combative. It may be hands-on. It may be going in there with a size 11 and a left and a right. But only when you need to do that to protect. And that protection extends to myself, to my family, to my friends, to everyone around me, to my work colleagues, and to the people I'm dealing with. When I was in the police and I switched the mindset back, I still have a duty to protect that person that's harming me, as long as that protection I extend to them doesn't interfere with the protection I'm extending to someone else. So I switched to a guardian mindset. And for me, it was a massive game changer in everything I did, from the way I teach self-defense, from the way I coach people, from the way I present the information now. It's a protective mindset, not an engagement mindset where you win. The victory is the protection and the survival and the security, not the imminent battle. Do you think that needs to be a shift in the culture of the way we present the training and the way we teach them, that we can move away from the fight and take it to the security piece?
I completely agree with what you were just stating. I think that for a little while, I mean, that discussion has been going on for a while, actually, in terms of warrior and guardian mindset in the industry. It's been going on for a few years, and you get some people that are real staunch, keep the warrior, and then you get some people with the guardian aspect of it as well. I would say, like I said, I agree, but I also think that, or believe that, with the guardian mindset, or with the guardian being, you have to have a warrior component to you.
It's
otherwise
essential. But the guardian's role has that
human siren.
But that is the guardian is inherent. Protection isn't just sounding off. You're not a security guard.
Yes.
Guardian is protection. And the protection sometimes will be killing the wolf that threatens the sheep.
Yeah. So you have to have that warrior essence a part of you, but the guardian is the predominant. Absolutely. The guardian is the prevailing spirit. That's who you are.
The warrior becomes the subset.
Have that warrior. Yeah. The warrior comes out when it's time to go to war. Right. So, but you got to have that. You have to have both of those being a part of you for it to really work, is what I would say too.
I would agree with that. And the guardian mindset done properly actually encompasses that. So you think of the sentries on guard at the palace in London. They don't move until you cross that line. As soon as you cross that line, slap you back down. And then as soon as you've gone back, they back to their position. They have that in them, but they're not looking for that fight. They know you're going to do it. It's okay. You haven't done it yet. Okay, bang. There you go. So you're right. And that's what has to be emphasized too as well. When you talk about moving away from the warrior mindset, we're not talking about de-skilling you. We're talking about giving you the ability to solve situations with more than just hands-on, more than just violence, more than just aggressively tackling it. Did any of these guys actually say to him, okay, get out of the car, lie on the floor?
Yeah, I didn't hear it. At least not in the tone that it should have been in. Yeah,
correct.
I didn't hear it.
When we look at situations like I've had, and I know you've had them, Rich, I'm sure you had them, when you're dealing with those individuals, when you take a different tack than everyone else who's taking, and all of a sudden you get success. When you got 3 guys that are bringing an arrest in, say, guys, back away from him. Let me handle this. So, okay, guy, I got you. I'll take care of you right now. Ignore those guys. Forget him. Talk to me. I don't know what's going on. What's going on? Talk to me. Just give him something else. Those little tactical shifts, because it has to be about end game. If you pull me over, so D, I'm going down in my Dodge Ram, pinning it, going down the street, and you light me up from behind. My end game is to not get a ticket. So my actions are going to be dictated around not getting a ticket. Hey, officer, you know what? You're right. I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah. I got no excuses. I've had a bad day. So, yeah, no, I know you're just doing your job. I'm going to be the nicest guy in the world to not get. May I still get a ticket? Yep.
Yeah.
But my actions are going to be, I might not, exactly. So I'm playing, I'm stacking those odds in my favor. When I'm affecting a T-stop or I'm affecting an arrest or whatever I'm doing, my actions as the officer should be to that end game. You want to call me a dickhead? Fine, I'll roll with the punches. I've been called worse. As long as you're doing what I said, you can have your script. You can have your moment in the sun. I want that end game piece coming in there, and I'm not really concerned with looking cool doing it.
Yeah, that's a success. Like I think too. Like I started to reframe, like you were doing, like you've started to do, and like you've been doing. What really is success on this traffic stop, right? What really is success? Like, yo, man, you got your. Hey, they signed it. They signed the citation if you were going to give them one, and I don't care how many MFers they called you or what they rolled their window up or they were giving you attitude. Hey, dude, you won. Guess what? You won. You won. That's success. And I'm sure it's the same thing with with Rich on his end. I mean, there has to be versions of that. Like, dude, like we don't have to go back and forth. Hey, it was a success. We won. I remember when I used to work in the jail. Like, I'll tell somebody to take it down, and they'll be mother effing me all the way, but they're going to their room. Success.
Look, as long as they keep their clothes on and they're not throwing shit at me, dude, I'm okay with the night. You won.
Yeah. It's so hard, and I think people that have operated and functioned at a higher level, and those of us that have experience, we know what true winning is. Like, dude, I don't have to wrestle you down. I don't have to do. As long as you're doing what you said, you can get bad, you can MF me, you can all. As long as you're doing what I'm asking you to do, I run, brother. It's all. you ain't gonna get no fuss out of me. But that's experience, though, right?
Yeah.
That's That's those of us that are trained at a high level. We know, like, man, look, if I wanted to, I could end this instantly. But this goes to what you were saying too, Jay. You guys like. And I tell my recruits this too, when I speak to them at the end of the day, I give them like an end of day briefing and stuff. And I'm like, no true guardian or no true warrior wants to fight, but they're ready to. They're ready to handle the situation if it happens. And it's the funny thing is, the more well-trained you are, the less you even got to do this stuff. Yeah. It's amazing how that works. The more well-trained you are, the more just at peace with yourself, and more man, you rarely have to even go that route.
And it's the mental piece that goes with that. When you know, I have my guys, sounds like I'm plugging myself a lot here. This isn't what I'm doing. I have a program that I run.
You have a school or something, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. Links in the comments below. There's a training protocol I actually have, and I call it the black side. And because what we actually do is we take some mental training and we go to the point where you will kill. That's what we call your bottom line. That's your absolute darkest moment. Now, for some people, you threaten their kids. For others, it might be their dog. For some people, you scratch their car. There's some more work needed on other things there, but we'll just find out. We need to find out where your bottom line is. That's the whole point behind it. Most people that you deal with have a bottom line, which typically goes around family and things like that as well. When you know what your absolute bottom line is, then you start to dial stuff back, and you can actually drip the scenario backwards. So they're not killing them now, they're just attacking them now, and you actually end up with a series of graded response lines in the sand. What it means is when you're aware of where your bottom line is, when you know that's ultimately where I'll go, you then know everything that you then start to work backwards. So you know where everything else fits in along those, which means you're not suddenly in a situation where you don't know how to respond and you go to viscerally. You know at what point you're going to engage. At this point, I'm talking. At this point, I'm getting stern. At this point, I'm shouting. At this point, I'm grabbing. At this point, I'm punching. At this point, I'm grappling. And you have a whole response options. Often you'll go into action and people say, dude, why did you do that? Because their response hasn't got this frame and they don't know how to engage it. So it looks like you're on a hair trigger and it's not. You know where your responses are. You know what your goal point is. And because you're aware, know thyself, know thy enemy, you know their behavior, you know your behavior, you're recognizing they're hitting your point because this, and this. That's why you take that action so fast and so decisively. So this comes back to the mental aspects of things as well, which again is a training protocol. And it's very, very much neglected. We go so much onto the physical, we don't look at the correct trigger points or individual lines in the sands, because my ethics and morals are different than anyone else's because they're not me. They'll coincide at points, but my goal point isn't theirs. Legally, it's the same because that's set in standard. But my ethical and moral goal points are completely different places. So I have to know that in myself. How much of this type of training do we have to push to now to the individual? Because the departments we know have failed and continue to fail to provide adequate training for their officers. So that's what we'd obviously be looking at blue skies. Increase the budget, increase the training, make the guys better. We know the chances of that happening are low. How do we now get to the individuals and we say to them, you know what? They ain't helping you. It's time to help yourself and your colleagues. How can we get them to it now? What do we do to get them there?
I mean, you have, former police officers or current law enforcement military out there doing training as a business, but a lot of these people aren't taking them up on the offer or don't want to pay that kind of money, which I understand. Why pay extra money for something that you should be getting from work? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I understand why you would think that. I don't agree with it, but it's not why you would think.
But at some point, these cities, these counties, these municipalities are going to have to step it up, because if you don't prevent something like this again through training, it's just we're going to have a civil war on our hands, more so of civilians versus police again.
Yeah. And then
it's tough, man.
It is.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, then you'll have to have warriors because you'll be at war. They then become soldiers. You're not police officers anymore. You're certainly not guardians anymore.
It's tough. It's tough and it's frustrating because we know the answers to a lot of these problems. We know, right? Because it's not really rocket science. Hell, I mean, if you can figure out how to go to Mars and send satellite, we can figure this out, right? Like that's the frustrating thing. That's if you really start to think about it, you start to kind of get pissed a little bit because it's like, look, man, we know that this stuff costs money, right? It costs money to have these trainings. Like the government has to want to invest in the first responders profession, invest in law enforcement, invest in fire EMS. Like they have, so that you can get the better results. It costs to do that because services cost. I mean, okay, I get it. Capitalistic society, those things happen. It's the same thing with education though, right? Like we know that a more well-educated society yields greater output on all fronts. Lower crime, lower aggression. We know this, but yet, no, we have major disparities in education. Major. We're hovering. The U.S. especially is hovering around the shittiest of countries in education, but we want to invest trillions in everything else. Like, but we know the benefits of education. We know the benefits of having the right psychological aptitude test to become EMS, law enforcement officers. We know the right. We know, right, the trainings that they have that we should be doing, but we don't do it. And it's just
look,
like,
I mean, look at here in Atlanta. I mean, our streets, our homeless population, it's out of control. But we just built a $2.1 billion stadium 5 years ago for football, and then another $1.6 billion stadium for baseball. Like, that money, I mean, and granted, the teams paid, a percentage into that, but also the money from the taxpayers to go and build these things, when it's like, I mean, I think Atlanta or Georgia, I think we paid, it was roughly like over $1 billion as part of that new stadium. $1 billion.
That's a lot of cheese.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me
especially
wrong,
in Atlanta.
I love the complexes. I love the sports entertainment there. But when you think about it, and it's like, I'll have patients that are, they have back problems, or they just had back surgery, and you're going to the hospital and the road is like going down a gravel road, like a washed out gravel road. And they're like, ow, 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 pain. And I'm like, it takes nothing to pave these roads, but you build a stadium in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes
It's
out of
just
us,
priorities, Jay.
and it comes out of a separate budget, though, don't it? Oh, that's a sport budget. Yeah. That's a sport budget. We've only got so much for roads for this year, so we can't repair it.
Yep.
But there we are.
That's the difficulty of it, and I don't know. I mean, I guess Richard is kind of right. I mean, and unless the the peasants, for lack of a better word, that would be all of us.
Yeah.
We storm the castle and burn it down. Like, how else? I don't know how else is going to be. The point is going to be made like that. Yo, it needs to change. I mean, we've all talked about this. Like, look, dude. In theory, in terms of law enforcement, if these guys are going to be running around with the power that they have and the things that they can do and stuff like that, I want the freaking Navy SEALs of officers.
Yep.
I'll take 10 of those as opposed to 100 dipshits. How about that? Because I know those 10 could run a city, like, because they're not. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say. So this, going back to what we're talking about, quality people. We've got a bunch of new young folks that came into our division in EMS, and one had words with a senior person. That senior person didn't like it, so they went to the manager, and I'm not sure if this was the exact wording that they used, but it was, from the manager's point of view, it was better to have bad employees than no employees.
See, there we go.
And I'm like, you got to be effing kidding me. That's
the same logic with law enforcement now. I can tell you that for a fact. Remember, I run an academy, so I see this. Look, you guys, you're probably not going to laugh, but look, not in a not so far past, I was in a meeting where the discussion was, we should lower the standards for firearm qualifications.
You have got to be yanking my chain.
Not
to what?
Negative.
To what? Do you know how to put the bullets in and just point and shoot?
You guys, these are because the numbers are so dire and everybody needs bodies. These are the number cruncher managers, the number cruncher captains and chiefs and shit.
I mean,
right?
what standard are they using, though? Put the gun away so you don't blow your own cock off. I mean, it's...
Yo, you guys would not believe
that wouldn't have been
the
funny.
meetings that I sit in, man.
That wouldn't have been as funny if it wasn't in your accent.
Right. Oh my God. Jay, I swear, you guys, Rich, I swear to you, public, community, whoever's listening to this, you guys should be in an uproar with the amount of training that is provided to law enforcement, the hours, they need to be massively increased.
Yes.
For California, let's just say for California, the bare minimum of hours you need to be a cop is 664 hours. Now, you can do more than that, but
That's the
what the
academy or
state,
training?
that's the government. Yeah, the academy. For any academy in the state of California, the governing board says you at least have to hit 664 hours. Do you know, to become like a barber, a beautician, or anything else that has a licensure, their hours are in the thousands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for law enforcement, with all the powers, all the knowledge, all the stuff that they're supposed to have, down to almost to a decent level when they graduate, they are only requiring 600 and something hours. I think people should, if that's the bare minimum, well, you know, places aren't going to go too far ahead of the bare minimum because it's about money at the end of the day, right? So if you're holding people to the bare minimum of things, no wonder I'm getting top brass saying, well, maybe, what do you guys think about lowering the qualifications? If we have, I'll give you a prime example. If we have a red and blue target, you're supposed to shoot so many rounds on the red, so many on the blue, and it's timed. Well, if he or she hits the red target 2 more times, and if those bullets went over there and they're supposed to go to the blue, should they really be disqualified? That's the wrong person.
Yes.
So, and I thought, yeah. Should that really mean that they're potentially being dismissed from the academy? Yeah.
So what?
That?
So D, what are the current qualifications that they're saying that should be lowered?
That would be one of them. That's one of them. Or if they don't really shoot all the rounds in a prescribed time, should that be really reason for them to? They should just lose points, not fail the test.
I'll throw one out as a guess. If they do their subject control tactics qualification and are not able to subdue someone properly, maybe we can, I don't think they need to know. We're not giving belts out here. Did they try? Did they try to arrest that? Because they don't help on the streets and things. Am I in the ballpark on that?
Yes, man. Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
Yes.
Anything that involves a physical skill is the first thing they'll start to shift the boundaries on.
I'll give you one more extra one.
Please do. Please do.
One more extra one. This is for evac. There's cones set up, delineators and cones and stuff, because we can't put real people out there because they'll get ran over and they'll get injured. So here's another one. Daryl, like, what do you think? What's your feelings on somebody failing evac because they struck a delineator or struck a cone? Well, Chief, that's reminiscent of a body. That's somebody standing on a corner, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. But should they fail evac? Yeah, Chief. These are the discussions, you guys, that I
This is insane.
This is where we're going.
The thing,
this is where we're going with law enforcement, because there's such
but they get practice
bodies.
attempts before they do this, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And you still can't get it,
For anyone that's interested, the number of hours that Dee prescribed, if we go on an 8-hour work day and split that out of 5 days a week, it's 16 and a half weeks training.
Yep.
16 and a half weeks. That's it.
They have the potential to change somebody's life forever.
And what's the difference in the performance expectation between that person the second they put foot on the street compared to a 20-year vet? Zero difference. That's the same job, the same calls, the same everything.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Yep. So I think that people should be marching and raising a storm for, I think, the academy. I mean, honestly, and people would be pissed at me for saying this, but I don't care. I think a job as important as this, as critical as this, I think it should be no less than 10 months of an academy where you go out and maybe you do a practicum and then you come back in and we process this inside the educational walls, and we talk about this. Okay, well, how does this hold up to legal standards? Okay, I think that we can make it way more beneficial that way. we're weeding out the people. Again, that's one weeding out area. We're weeding out people that don't really meet the criteria, don't really want it, but you're also getting a better product at the end that is able to use a greater amount of discernment in critical situations. You just get a better outcome, right? And so, yeah, those 16 weeks, those 600 and something bare minimum hours. Now, most academies kind of hover. We hover at we're at 904 at my academy, but it's still crammed into this 6 month. Most academies are in a 6 month period.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just cramming in more hours. It's not necessarily more time, because I like I said, I think that we could do so much better and so much more if we lengthen out that time with the academies. But I get it though, on every agency, and I'm pretty sure this is across the country. And I recently heard this fire and EMS is having the same issues too in terms of recruiting and bodies, right? They're dying too. And it's like, yo, I get that we need the numbers, but you can't sacrifice freaking standards, you guys. You can't sacrifice an already low criteria bar and try to make it lower. Hell, what are we gonna do next? Like, come on, man. Come on. So, yeah, you guys, it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma.
It is. Well, we should all be in charge. Let's just put us three in charge. That'll solve it.
I'll tell you what, it'll be a rough 3 first years, but I bet you on the 4th or 5th year, we'll start getting the people that we fucking want.
Absolutely.
And those will be the dogs. Those will be the right people.
Sifu Singh says this, and he says this many, many times when he talk to people about giving them training and giving them what they need. He said, if you put your hand in ice water, it's cold, and eventually your hand goes numb. It's gone numb because you killed all nerve endings, and it's kind of like freezing off there and it's doing damage. When you pull that hand out, it starts to hurt when it warms up. Most people plunge back in rather than go through the pain of taking it out to stop the damage happening so they can heal that hand. And that's the way it seems to be with most organizations. They will actually plunge back into the cold water where everything goes numb rather than have the pain of coming out of it again. And I think a lot of when we call for change like this, we have to educate not only the leadership, not only the organization, we have to educate the public. So you know what, guys? This is going to suck for a couple of years, and you're not going to like it.
Yep.
We want you to work with us on this.
I was asked recently if I wanted to be a supervisor, and I said no. And they're like, why not? Because I'm like, because there are 4 people I would fire the moment I put that shirt on.
Yep.
And you won't support me in it. So therefore I'm not doing it.
Yeah, that's the hard work. Like, a lot of leaders don't want to do the heavy lifting. And they've misunderstood and misread what it means to be a leader and make those decisions. And you guys are both absolutely right. And Jay, you're absolutely right in terms of the analogy that Sifu Singh always uses with that. And I think that law enforcement and fire EMS as well needs to utilize that logic. We can't lower an already low standard. One, if anything, we need to be heightening the standard, because we are seeing what happens when we have low standards. We are seeing what happens. When I say standards, I mean like in terms of the mental health part of it, and the physical aspect part of it, and the hiring part of it. Like, how about we first of all hire the right people, right? And then, like you said, we need to aware the public. Like, it's going to be a hard couple of years. Crime may take a spike or so because we necessarily don't have the numbers. But this is what I'll tell you, people. Real soon, we're going to have the right people where none of that's going to even matter, and those numbers are going to shoot down as quick as they just spiked up, because we got the right individuals in play, and we're saving the lives, and we're protecting people, and the world is just to be a better place. But we got to bite the bullet for a while and get out give the boot to these people that aren't about the change. Give a boot to these people that don't want to evolve and be better and do better. And it is what it is, right? But we got to be able to do that and have the balls. Or
Yeah.
what I tell my recruits, we got to have the ovarian and testicular fortitude to make these decisions, to make hard decisions. Because I don't want to be biased. So ovarian and testicular, right? You got to have both.
Love it. Love it. Well, I mean, I could talk to you guys all day anyway. And B, this topic isn't one that we're going to be able to kill in 60 minutes, but it was more just wanting to explore outside of what happened and see what we can do to change. We think, and that's the thing, things have to. Rich, you nailed it. This can't happen again. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. This is by far probably the most egregious that I've seen in some time. There's been some
It is,
locals.
and I think had it not been caught on camera, it would have been worse.
Yeah,
because this would have been drug out. These guys would still have jobs, and we would be looking at riots and everything else again.
here's what's scary, and I don't want to start a whole topic on it. And this brings it to the individuals. They knew they were on camera because they're aware of one, and they didn't care.
No.
And they didn't care. And I find that actually terrifying.
Which makes you question the department, right? Like, oh, snap.
And now we come full circle again. Where are they getting this?
Like I said, the police chief there used to be the police chief here.
I don't see how they can survive.
I mean, she should not have a job at this point.
Yeah, I don't see how she can.
Well, I think
it's
how long has she been there?
System.
How long has she been over there at
I
Memphis?
want to say she's been there at least a year or longer. A little bit longer than a year.
Okay.
She was certainly there when the unit was founded.
I would say, you guys know it's tough coming in
and cleaning house
as a leader and cleaning house. As a coach, let's just use athletic teams. As a coach, it takes about 3 years to change the culture. Just the culture. You bringing in your staff. You bringing in the people that you recruited. You're trying to change a culture. So I want to go. I do want to go hard on her. If it's only been a year, god dang, man, she's still. People are still shining her on. She's still trying to figure out what she has and what she's working with.
Well, she had issues here in Atlanta too.
She was very much. Yeah, I don't know.
See, she was very much. She developed a reputation to not be for the local officers. She was they labeled her more of a politician than they did a police chief. So
okay, see, because I don't know her history there in Atlanta, so that could glean some more information.
She was on board with the mayor, the previous mayor of Atlanta, and which they felt it was okay to stop chases in the city of Atlanta. So if they got into a car and they started running somewhere, they stopped chasing. You could not.
That's politics. Them. Yeah, that's all politics right there. A lot of that's politics, and just smarts too. How you lead your. Again, back to leadership, man. Your chases, your code 3 runs is what we would call it. Your code 3 runs should be cleared through a sergeant. Hey, this is what I got. Going code 3. Sergeant should be like, nope, stop chase. Should be able to cancel it, right? Because there's a danger involved in it. But if you're just wiping it all out, criminals are they're gonna be doing stuff all day because they know you.
It was a joke for the surrounding counties that basically surrounded the roads in and out of Atlanta. That they're like, they may not chase you in Atlanta, but you cross that county line, we're gonna get your ass.
I'll give you something which may give you pause for concern. She joined the department in June 2021.
Okay,
so about a year and a half then.
Scorpion unit was formed in November 2021.
Yeah, you gotta have tight reins on units like that, man. You can't let them just run wild.
She
You
let
gotta
them
know what's going
fall.
on in
They
your
formed under her watch. She signed off on them
yeah,
before they put boots on the street.
yeah. And it probably was a political ploy to like, hey, I'm putting out this new unit. It's gonna be
Guaranteed.
in the streets helping. So yeah,
If
she's
it's
gotta bite it. She's
if
gotta
it's
bite the
that
bullet.
quick, so you're looking at June to November, you're looking at about a 6 month spin on that
Yeah.
ish. That's
You
probably
pick the
one of her.
officers.
That's one of her first initiatives. I'll almost guarantee it.
And you know she had a hand in picking the officers who staffed it.
I'll pretty much
You
guarantee
would
that
think
as well.
so. Yeah, if that was her, yeah, if that's one of her babies.
Or she at least signed off on the guy that put it forward. So
Yes.
Yeah,
she
she
didn't.
absolutely signed off on it.
Yeah, she didn't inherit these dipshits.
Yeah, she absolutely signed off on it. And as a leader, I mean, again, man, and I keep harping on this, as a leader, it's my responsibility to be, if she's the chief, it's my responsibility to be on my assistant chiefs, to be on the captains, to be on those lieutenants, to be, because obviously she can't know every single thing, right? It's a big
No.
department, but it's incumbent upon her. But her leadership sets the tone for the assistant
Yes,
chiefs,
it does.
the captains, the lieutenants. And if she's not on them like this, you get shit like this
You
because
do.
she should have known at the end of the day that, yep, you're right.
I
So
went
yeah, I
right
don't
back
see
to
her
that beginning
surviving
again.
this one.
No.
Yep.
I'm going to cut this short now, boys. Well, I'm not. I'm going to cut it long.
All right.
Because we'll just keep going. All right. But I'm going to give a few moments. If there are any, we've got a couple of people that have actually joined us live. And thank you for doing so, guys. I hope you've actually enjoyed the discussion. I know I always get a ton of, I forget everyone else is watching and I'm talking to my homies. This is every time I talk to these guys, it's how I feel. So do any of you guys have anything you want to ask the three of us, or specifically Dee and Rich while we got them on here?
Hey, Coop, can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I got you, Andy. How you going?
I'm doing all right, thanks. Thanks, guys. This has been a great conversation so far. So, and I think you just kind of touched on one of the questions I had. So, looking at obviously what's been going on in the US for a while, and we've had some dissimilar but kind of same root cause issues. Does police, in terms of kind of senior leadership, need to, develop some kind of what I'll call, to use a military term, it's a staff college?
I mean,
Okay.
that could be a beginning. Yeah.
I can, yeah. They do have that. They do have a, I can't even think of the name of it right now. Doggone it! But they do have a college. It's bothering me now that I can't even remember the name of it. But they do have a college. They do have several different things. LAPD has a command. There we go. Command college. LAPD has a command college. The that's University of San Diego, which is a real primary one out here in California. A lot of command staff, meaning your assistant chiefs. You can be a captain on up. Generally goes to those colleges, but it's not mandatory. That's one. And then two, that is offered, but not everybody goes to that. And then the FBI also has a like a command college as well for captains on up. They can go to the FBI's command college, but it's not mandatory. So it sounds like something you're saying. I 1000% agree with you, because in the military, it's not an option. You're going to this if you're going to
Yeah.
be right. A
Once, yeah.
general. If you're going to be a lieutenant, like you're going. They don't have. It's not mandatory for police, which it should
Yeah,
be. Which
in
it
the
should
Navy,
be.
I had the same thing. Once you attain a certain rank, you got to go, and they had different levels. So E5, you
Mm-hmm.
had to go to a leadership academy. E6, you had to go to a leadership academy. E7 Chiefs, you had to go to another academy after that to continue leadership training.
And this is one of the things too. That was a great question for the caller. What I would say too is, in the military, at least the great military leaders that I've read about, and I'm talking about your Colin Powells, your Mattis, your McRavens, your just several of them that I've read, several of their books. Their knowledge, their knowledge base doesn't end once they've attained general status. These guys they continue to learn and go to school, and the military puts them to, and they go on their own. They continue to study and read. Chiefs, I brought this up in some discussions, candid discussions, because my question, like you, that you may be having is, well, once they become that, do they further their education? It's not mandatory, and many of them don't because they feel that they've attained, their level, so they don't continue to grow. And in my head, how selfish of them to think that they've become Buddha, they've become enlightened all of a sudden, and they don't continue to need to study other great leaders and how they do things. So, great question. I wish it was mandatory. Yeah.
It seems that within Calgary there was they don't do that kind of college, but they have what they call leadership development programs. So the LDP 101, 200, 300, that sort of thing too as well. The idea was to provide some drive for leadership and things. Unfortunately, as with so many of these courses, they don't fail people. You go there for the week, the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the whatever, you do the project, you submit it in, and no one's going to look at it and go, well, that's shit. No, fail. It's like you do the course, you do the time, you get the certificate. So the idea's there. The execution's bloody awful.
Yep. Check the box.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Same as requals. And that's again, geez, see, Andy, now look what you've done. Officer requals each year and things like that as well. You turn up, you show what a handcuff looks like, and you shout taser, taser, taser whilst jogging on the spot for 3 hours, and then you signed off for the year. It's abysmal. The level of requalification training within the service that I was last with was absolutely appalling. The actual academy training was okay. It was fine for what it was. Could it be better? Yeah. But again, they got time, they got budget. I understand that. The requalification is pitiful. And it's absolutely, in fact, they should be ashamed of how poor it is.
Yep.
Good question. Anyone else got anything they want to throw out before we do our formal sign off? Alrighty. Guys, thank you for taking the time out of your day to share this with me. I mean, you're my boys. Whenever this goes down, whenever anything like this goes down, it's like, gotta talk to Rich, gotta talk to D, because this is what we do. Yeah. It's how we approach this. And we said it last time.
Let's make a promise here. We'll do another one of these in a month or two that hopefully we're not having to talk about something like this.
I'm down with that.
Yeah,
we'll make this a monthly thing. And we've said this before and we've said this again. All of us are in positions, we have our experiences. We can change this. So I'll commit to you guys. I'll start making things change. If you start making things change in between the three of us, let's put it together and do what we do. Let's do what we meant to do. And this is another nudge for us to do it. The universe keeps giving us bigger slaps. I don't want the next one.
No, absolutely.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you to everyone else at home that joined us on this. It's something that, as you heard, Rich has thrown in there. We're going to start doing this monthly. Damn straight we are. And we'll cover an array of topics and things. These are two guys whose opinions and experiences, I cannot tell you how much I value them. And so it's great that we can get the information out there. We can get our experiences out there and share them. And hopefully we can be that one candle in the darkness. Although, thankfully, more and more people seem to be coming around to the same sort of things. If we keep the pressure on, if we keep being the agents for change, then the change will come. It's going to start small. It's going to be incremental, but it will eventually gather momentum and it'll be something bigger and better. So for everyone out there, my name is Jay Cooper. Thank you very much for D. Burton, Rich Moore, and for everyone that joined us. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.